the format of the workshop is a workshop session to go through to kind of give you a toolkit of things that you could use when co-producing with people, with anybody. For the purpose of this workshop, and when I talk about co-producing, I mean working with an individual or a group of people in the creation of services, projects, strategies, an event. Could be anything really. We are going to be working quite fast, and we're going to just try and get through as much as we can. It's a bit of a whistle-stop tour. If you have any questions, just let me know. I'm happy for people to like be off mute and kind of chat and throw things in. I mean, we're a smaller group as well, so if you want to just throw out your thoughts, please do. If people start talking over, then we can use a hand up system. But for now, we can just say we're just, you know, having a chat, working together in the workshop space, if that's all right with everybody. And then the next thing to say is just that we're going to try a few different things. I don't know if you got the resources list. I don't know if you got the resources list. But it was pens, paper, magazine, or newspaper. We might not use all of them. We might. But if you haven't got those things, we'll find a way for you to do it. And we've got my colleague is on the call as well, just in case my Wi-Fi goes and she needs to take over, because my Wi-Fi is sometimes a little tricky, just for fun. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to just warm up. So to do this, you can keep yourself on mute. What I want us to do is to start off by having a big stretch and a pretend yawn. And make the noise, because it's always better when you make a noise of a yawn. And it might mean that we really yawn, and that's all right as well. And just then shake your body off. So after 3, we're all just going to have a big yawn. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, yawn. And stretch out. And shake your body off. Shake your shoulders out. Move your bum if you're in a position that you can, your hips, your body, everything. Just wake your body up, because basically restless bodies means restless minds, and it means we don't come up with the best ideas. So if I was ever running a session with a group, any group, I would try within the limits of what they cannot or might not be able or capable to do, to just wake your body up, get yourself alive and kicking and ready. And then the next thing that we're going to do, because we're going to go straight in there, and like I say, we're kind of going with we're just going to try it kind of feel and give it a go if you don't mind, is we're going to do a freeze frame for how we're feeling today. So as an example, I might say a freeze frame of a dinosaur. Say I said a dinosaur. I'm then going to count down from 5 to 1, and you've got to turn into the dinosaur. You're not doing a dinosaur, you're doing how you feel today. But I'll do an example with a dinosaur. So if I was doing a dinosaur, it might be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that would be my dinosaur. So we're going to do that, but we're going to create a freeze frame of how we're feeling today. And when we get to 1, we're actually going to hold the image, whereas I moved the dinosaur, we're going to hold the image. So everybody ready? Have a think how you're feeling. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lovely. Thanks. That's great. And relax. Perfect. Thanks. So it's just a quick way of getting people to respond to what they're thinking, feeling, and what they might be anticipating for the workshop or for whatever you're working on. Does anybody have any thoughts about starting with a freeze frame? Anybody really hate to start with a freeze frame? Anybody think, oh, this is quite a nice way to start? Any thoughts? Oh, got a hand like that. A thumbs up. Great. Great. So different opinions already. Perfect. So now, what I wanted us to do, if you could, I did ask in one of the messages to think of a co-production example that you maybe have intended on delivering or you are currently delivering, and maybe a target audience that you regularly work with. And if you can just in the chat put who you work with, like what group it could be, older people, children, teenagers, sexually exploited young women, it can be whatever group it is that you work with. The examples that I've given today are quite generic examples for all the exercises we're doing, just because I didn't know this information, but I will try and reference your examples. And so if you can throw who you're working with and any co-producing that you've done, so any Are you making events? Are you making projects? Is it strategies that you're doing when you're doing co-producing? Or you don't know, and that's fine as well. So hopefully some of my examples will cover these things, and I'll try and reference that we should try and think of our own thing as we go through. So the next bit, to the question, is co-production intrinsically creative? For me, and this is just a personal opinion, I think successful co-production probably is. And I think it will always have had to have included some creative elements. That doesn't mean that everybody is doing a big show and a dance. And I think there's something about breaking down what does creative mean. And to one person, it might mean that, it just a big West End show, for example. But actually, creative can be a much smaller version of that. And so hopefully what I'm going to do is showcase some of those smaller versions of creative that can allow people to be comfortable doing the things that they're doing. But maybe sometimes pushing people to go a little bit out of their comfort zone, but not so far that it puts them off being a part of the conversation. So what are the challenges, and this is just in discussion, what are the challenges people have found with just discussion-based or questionnaire-based co-production? So if you only use kind of discussing in a room or at a table, or questionnaire-based, what are the challenges people have found? Anybody want to just take themselves off mute and call out?
I've found that they can be really cathartic at the beginning to start off with discussion, but people get quite frustrated with having the same discussions over and over again, and maybe there's just a limit to how much you can talk, and people actually want to be able to do as well as talk about things. Like, you don't get much back from it.
Yeah, perfect. Anybody else? And you can all take yourselves off mute if you want now, because then we can just have the chat and it'll be easier. Unless there's a big noise in the background, feel free to just come off.
I've taken myself off mute, but I've got barking dogs, so I'll keep going in and out of mute so as not to disrupt everybody. Yeah. I worked with a equalities board that had older people from lots of different marginalised communities, and there's all sorts of issues around confidence and levels of spoken and written English that people have, and possibly some people dominating. So there's all those kind of issues really when people are coming from very different. It wasn't a community group that all had similar kind of backgrounds and experiences. It was a very diverse group. So it's managing all those differences really, and making sure that everyone can contribute.
Perfect. Anything else from anybody?
I would say feedback fatigue. Yeah, we work with people that get asked tirelessly like what they think about things, but they don't necessarily always get fed back to in terms of what improvements get made. Sometimes the improvements don't get made. And so people think, well, why should I tell you what I think?
Yeah, great, thank you. And I think there is definitely a difference between co-production and meaningful co-production. And actually, what does it turn into is a really important part of that. And we might not touch on that as much throughout this, but hopefully some of it brings out some of those challenges of not hearing those quieter voices, bringing those out, people's confidence and all those things, and trying to differentiate for different groups. Hopefully we'll cover some of that stuff. So the first thing we're going to do, although this is, we're going to do this in the chat, but normally if I was running a workshop, I'd probably be stood in a circle or sat in a circle, dependent upon the group. And we're going to do word association, where I'm going to say one word or one thing, and you're going to just put in the chat one word that you think connects to it. Now this I would normally do one after the other, which we kind of will be doing, but obviously everybody's typing at the same time. That's kind of fine as well. So the word association is our new doctor's waiting room. So what would you want your new doctor's waiting room to be? So the examples I'm using, like I say, are just ones that I've kind of pulled out that are a bit generic, but pop into the chat. What do you want your new doctor's waiting room to be, to feel like, to look like? What's the sense of it? Bright, friendly, warm, clean, bright, friendly, wit, calm, easy to access. Perfect. So now that is a quick way. White, interesting, a color choice as well. So that is immediately a way of getting people to say probably one of the things that is a priority to them for something. You've said it out loud, and it means that everybody in this space has said something and had the chance to say something and put something forward. So it might seem like a simple idea, but actually what you can take from that is a starting point for other conversations, maybe. Or you could break people into different groups to discuss those particular things. Somebody might have said red, and then you have to discuss these two colors are completely different. What does that mean? And you can kind of build on that. So although it seems really small and kind of minor, what I would say is, for me, when you're co-producing, that the icebreakers are just as important as the main bit, because you're building towards something, and the whole thing should feel like you're taking the participants on the journey. Thank you for that. So now, if you can take your piece of paper, or a piece of paper that you've got, there might be a few pieces of paper required throughout, but a piece of paper and a pen, if you've got them, and just write on a piece of paper 1 to 6. Just, it doesn't have to be big. So just like that, so you've got like a list. I don't know if you can see that actually. 1 to 6. That would be perfect. So now what I'm going to ask people to do is, I would like you to write 6 words that associate with a word that I'm going to give you. And it's the first 6 words that you think of. Don't spend lots of time. You have a maximum of about 10 seconds to do this. Obviously, writing time is fine. That's permitted. So I would like you to write the 6 words you think of when you think of chocolate. So write 6 words down that associate to you with chocolate, not discussing it with anybody else, is what I would say in a room where we're all together. So now what I would like everybody to do is, just you don't need to enter each one, just write all 6 of your words into the chat. So like word, comma, word, comma, word, comma. And then we're going to send them through, and just look at them and try and take note of how many other people said what you said, or said any of the words that you said. So if you can pop them in the chat, that'd be brilliant. So we've got sweet, creamy, comforting, brown, milk, tasty. Sweet, brown, creamy, delicious, unhealthy evenings. Crunch, melt, dark, sweet, soothing, self-love. Tasty, treat, guilty, sugar, comfort, yummy. Silk, smooth, lick, sweet, buzz, good. Happy, sweet, children, chill time. Brown, yummy, guilt. Creamy, fattening, delicious, creamy, melt, sweet, relax, treat, white, tea. Sweet, bar, brown, yummy, eat, lovely. So those are all the things that connect with chocolate. Anybody think that they had somebody match with at least 3 of what they said? Which ones were they? Oh, I'm saying, which ones are they? Somebody nodding at me. I'm on Zoom. Can you tell? Is it Charis?
Charis. Hi. Creamy and sweet, I definitely got, and brown, I definitely shared with other people, I think.
Was there any that somebody wrote and nobody else wrote it?
I wrote buzz. Buzz.
Buzz. Is that Marianne?
I wrote
Yeah.
children.
And Anna, say that again.
I wrote children.
Children. So it's connected to different things, and for you it connects to these things. Now in person I would do this where you write it down and actually you walk around and tally and look at each other's piece of paper and tally off the ones that you have, so you actually see which words stand out and which words are kind of less. But what this exercise does is it allows you to say to a group, even when we think that everybody else thinks of chocolate the way I think of chocolate, actually we all think of chocolate still in a different way. And it can work with, you can use doctor's waiting room, the new park we're doing, whatever it is that you want to do, or you can do it as an exercise like this with something a bit random that you can kind of showcase that our feelings, our thoughts are going to be different, and about the respect between the fact that we do have these different thoughts, and it doesn't matter whether you say something and how many times you say it. If somebody in their head imagines the sky this way and we imagine it that way, it's still the sky. So it's kind of that concept. So just to share that with you. Anybody got any thoughts about the exercise or any reflections?
I think it's a good one to show that, you know, people have things in common and things different, that everybody has some things in common. So I can see using that with a kind of diverse group of people.
I think it shows conflict in our views as well, doesn't it? Like guilty and yummy. Well, I think that was maybe me. Maybe I'm the one that's conflicted, but yeah.
I think it's an excellent. Sorry, I think it's an excellent exercise. One of the ways we've used something similar in the past is looking at the concept of home, because again, home will mean different things to different people, and obviously there are some contradictory concepts as well related to home. It's not always seen as a safe space, so it's just a really, really valuable exercise. So thank you.
No, that's great, thanks. And the other thing to always remember is that when we're facilitating any session with any group of people, we come with our own experience and our own baggage, and that's kind of all we can come with. And then we put that in the mix. And sometimes that is a really sensitive thing to bring to a table. And so using an exercise like this, it brings it to the table in a way that is just so judgment free that it allows for a safe space. So then I'm just going to talk now a little bit about a couple of types of games. I would always rather do the things, but I'm aware of time and I'm trying to showcase as much. But I wanted to just touch on people that might not have writing as their favorite skill. We are going to do some writing things, but I'll try and always come back to what you can do as an alternative. But there are agree and disagree games where you can have agree at one side of the room and disagree at the other. And it might feel like, well, that's quite a childlike thing to do, but actually I've done it with adults several times, and it just allows people to A, make a choice, and B, to be able to kind of place themselves and actively think about something. So agree at one side of the room, disagree at another. What I think works better with adults, actually, is having it as a spectrum. So you can go anywhere you like in the middle. What works maybe with people with learning disabilities or people maybe that have a lower educational level is having just one or the other, because it makes the choice easier to make. It's like a yes or a no, and you could do yes or no as answers if agree and disagree feel like harder words to use. Yes and no can work. It's just dependent on the questions. The other way that you can do it is north, south, east, west. So if you really want to kind of hone down on some parts of whatever it is that you're working on, you can have 4 answers and it allows them to make a choice, or you see a majority vote physically rather than just doing a vote or kind of ticking it off on a piece of paper. And the most important part is that you're always asking, why did you stand there? What is it that made you stand in that place? What do you like about that thing? So that you're actually getting, because the exercise is really that I'm sharing, it's more about getting people to think, and then they can articulate it better because they have the chance to experience something to think about it. Okay, so I would like our pieces of paper out again, and a pen, please, if you can. So I am going to time you for 1 minute, and you have to write for 1 solid minute without stopping. And if you want to stop or you can't think, just write blah blah blah, whatever noises in your head, try and just articulate it with the pen on the paper. Don't let the pen leave the paper. I'm going to time for 1 minute, and you're going to write about your ideal holiday. So what is your ideal holiday? Ready, steady, go. Got about 30 seconds left. Ten seconds. And just finish the sentence off, or the little bit off that you've done, and then stop there and lift your pens up. Perfect. So now what I would like you to do, so this is your ideal holiday, but you might not be able to have all of that. So what I would like you to do is select your 2 most important sentences or phrases. The 2 sentences that if you had to pick 2, those would be the 2 that you'll pull out. And when I say phrase, it can be like 3, 3 words long to about 7 words, not sentences that have just got lots of semicolons in. That mean you get the whole thing. So now, out of those 2 sentences or those 2 phrases, you need to select your top 3 words. They're the words that you have to take forward, but you're not allowed any of the others. You've got to just pick 3 individual words. Okay. Perfect. Everybody all right? Everybody selected their 3. Okay, great. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to quite slowly, because I'm a bit rubbish at putting people into breakout groups, put you into breakout groups, and you're going to split into 2 groups. Will do. And as a group, you're going to share your top 3 words with everybody, but then you have to come back in 2 minutes time with 3 words that are the 3 of your group, and that is the selection, and that you get no other words. They are the top 3 for an ideal holiday. So I'll just put you into breakout groups. Does that all make sense? Does everybody understand what I mean? Perfect. Okay. I feel like that's everybody back. Holly, let's.
Oh, it's you. I was like, who's that?
Holly, let's go with your group. What 3 words are your group's ideal holiday?
I think we had. Sorry, I've just had to go upstairs to get my charger. I think we had escape and nature, and I can't remember what the last one was. Someone from the group will remind me.
Yeah.
C.
C, possibly.
Possibly.
We tried to combine words so that where there were 2 slightly different ones, we tried to make a bigger word that captured both of them.
Ah, sneaky. I like it.
I think we were getting there with warmth as well, because I think a few people said sun.
And the other group?
Well, I assume that the hours will be.
I can just hear somebody that's talking in the background. I don't know if they could just pop themselves on mute, if that's possible. Sorry. So anybody from the other group to give us their 3? Is it Bex's group?
We had sunshine, waves, and family.
Lovely. Okay. So what this, I hope, does is it demonstrates a really fast way of getting people to think on their feet. Sometimes I think you need to do creative exercises that make people not have the time to think, because actually that's sometimes what happens with discussion is they go off because people have so much time to think that they don't kind of hone in on a kind of decision. And so this is just to kind of hone down, and it's not to say that that means that the only things you would do are these things, and that would be the only things you could do on your ideal holiday, but it does bring a collective idea together that you can then use as that starting point and sort of say, well, this feels like the priority. And you've also had the chance, I hope, it didn't get too heated in those breakout rooms as I wasn't there, but it also allows for negotiation between individuals within the groups to talk about, well, if we're going to have that one, then shall we have this one as well? And you find a balance together rather than maybe having the dominant voices in the room. So that was that exercise. We're now going to come on to having pens and paper. So if you've got some colourful pens, preferably like felt tips that we might be able to see on the screen if you can. If you haven't, don't worry. And what I would like you to do is you've got about 2 minutes. Obviously, I would give a bit more time for these exercises, but just for the purpose of showing the exercise, I'm doing it this way. So you've got 2 minutes, 2-3 minutes to draw a picture of what you think the new version of a derelict estate in your city should look like. So if you can think of a derelict estate in your city that you know, or an area, maybe an industrial area that doesn't have anybody going there anymore, and you've got 2 or 3 minutes to draw what you think it would look like. And the drawings, if you're not confident at drawing, that doesn't matter. Stick men, stick women, stick people are fine. Words, if you want to put words on, are good. Anything goes really. So just, so you've got 2 minutes to draw your ideal version of what that derelict estate would look like. So 2 minutes.
Sorry.
So we've got about
Hello?
a minute left. Okay, so if we stop drawing wherever you're at, if that's all right, I'm going to try and make my screen bigger so I can see you all. If you can make the screen bigger so you can see everybody's screen, everybody's face on the screen if you haven't already, that would be great. And I'm going to count down, if we all hold our piece of paper up so we can get it so that it's opposite way around, so we can't see the pictures yet. We're going to do a grand showcase of these. So the blank page, the opposite bit up, just so that we can see that they're all there. And then when we're ready, we're going to turn them around and reveal our new estate. So ready, steady, turn. So everybody have a look. Try and put them a bit closer to the camera so everybody can see what's on the images. Have a look. I feel like, Joe, I can't quite see some of yours. So can you tell us a little bit about yours?
Yeah, yeah, I did it on the back of a letter, so that's why it's not showing up very well. And I've got somebody speaking on the phone next to me, so somewhere for the whole family. Got a skateboarding ramp over here. There's a large bridge for going for a wander, benches overlooking the pond with ducks and things in it. So a nice parky area for everyone.
Okay. Thanks, Joe. And anybody notice anything about anybody else's that they want to ask? Or any similarities that people notice straight away?
Greenery. I think everyone's gone for greenery.
Yeah, everybody's gone for greenery. Terrace, what is your exclamation? Or is it just a door?
It's my really bad drawing skills. So it's lots of different shapes and size houses representing like different kind of diverse needs that people have in terms of their housing, and it's big windows.
I love it. And it's not bad drawing skills, it's just my imagination as well. Right, perfect. So we can put those down. Lovely. So on Zoom, it works well in the fact that we can see it and you can make an image yourself, you know, of an image together. If I was in person, the way that I would do this is you would create it, you would put it on the floor, spread out. You might have even bigger pieces of paper, up to you. And then either you walk around it and it's just like a walk around a new town and walk around a new estate, walk around the new waiting room, whatever that is. Or what you can do, which is even better and really exciting, but needs to be done with the right groups and knowing that you maybe have a better relationship or a longer term relationship with the group, is if you pair people up and one of them is blindfolded and guided by the other one holding their elbow. And if they guide them around and the person walking around guiding them describes what they can see. So it's like bringing to life your new city, so, or your new estate, or whatever it is. And it can also work with, it might feel funny to do it with, but it could also work with like a safeguarding policy. What is the new safeguarding policy going to look like? And it can just bring it to life. So what important bits people pull out and maybe drawing an image version of it rather than a word version is sometimes a more accessible way for people to engage. So The other thing to say is that this exercise that we've just done, it feels like we maybe had quite similar ideas, but you could, if you were doing this with something else that maybe had more of a variety, you can do the same thing that we did with the words, but with the images. And if you have scissors, and you can cut out the images so that everybody then selects their favorite one from theirs, then they go into a group and you have to select 3. So you end up with one group. And if you're working with a group of 30, it can be, you could still end up with 8 images at the end that make up your collective group's map of wherever you are, or whatever that would be. Any thoughts on that as an exercise, or any of the exercises we've done up to now, or any questions from anybody? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, some great ideas there.
Perfect, thanks, Jo. Yeah, I am very aware that I'm going very fast. Emma, you've popped in the 2 minutes without pressure. I would normally give them a good amount of time, let them invest in it, because actually the idea that they then care about it, in fact, makes the conversation probably richer, actually. And so I'm just showcasing the exercise rather than the pressure that you would put anybody under. Yeah, sorry if you feel any pressure. So yeah, so you can do that the same with the words as well, with the same that we did with the words. And for groups that maybe are less able to draw or communicate, they could tell somebody, you could do it as a dictaphone, and hear what people say. You could have images already prepared, lots of different images, and they just pick their favorite and then pick their favorite bit, and then they have to work together. It's much harder with a group, maybe with learning disabilities, for example, maybe to have that negotiation around which one are we going to pick. So it could be that it is just one big image that you're making, and that's fine as well, because that's a good starting point for the conversation. Lovely. So now I'm just going to talk through, and this is just me, we're not doing these ones, this is just a little bit of a talk through some other exercises, thinking about other mediums. And I think one thing that is interesting is you are the person, if you're facilitating, that sets the line on what resources you use. So if you bring a bag of objects, you can use a bag of objects. If you bring a collection of arts and crafts materials, you can use them. If you don't bring them and you just bring flip chart paper and pens, or pens and plain paper, that's all you can use. So it's always to bear in mind that you can provide things that allow you to build different parameters. So some of the other ideas using images is just a general mood board. So it would be a collective mood board, it can be an individual mood board. I'm sure everybody knows what a mood board is, but looking through your magazine or your newspaper, you can cut images out, pick and put them, glue them down, and then you've got already an idea of what the ideal thing is, whatever it is you're making. I think it's really good to try and talk about senses. So people are thinking about the way something smells, the way they see it, how they see something, how they hear something, so that they're not just always thinking about things that they know necessarily, and maybe it brings it out into a more abstract concept and allows for a wider conversation. One idea that I've half done before, but then I kind of made up for this very workshop, is a treasure map of a participant's current experience, and then a treasure map of what the experience would be after. And I think it would be a fun way that if it's a place-based thing, the journey that person goes on, and if you can see that in a visual form or kind of a comic book style, with X being the result that you would want to get. So it's about everybody working towards a goal. So I have used that exercise before, but more as a theatre workshop where you create the images of how you get to the kind of treasure map, physically bringing it to life. But you could create a kind of art-based version one, or a drawing and pens-based version one. So postcards. So postcards, and having a selection of postcards that people can pick and say, I've picked this one because this one relates most to the thing we're doing because of, and then they will give their reason, because people, like we've said with the chocolate exercise, will see different things in different images from one another. So the next thing that we're going to do is with a piece of paper, you're going to draw it's the front cover, it's called tabloid, this exercise, the front cover of a newspaper that you're making. And this is for an equality and diversity policy. And this front cover would be the story on the front cover once your equality and diversity policy was made. So what you have to include is one image, one headline, one image, and 3 words. Now you could do this where you look through your magazine, you cut it out and you make a front cover. You could do this that you just think of the words. It could be that there's a selection of words available. I'm going to ask everybody here just to give it a go. So you're going to create a front cover. So this would be a front cover for an equality and diversity policy, and it's the front cover that you would see as the end result. So if everything went well, you've done the job that you wanted to do, this would be the front cover. And so it needs a headline, it needs a picture or an image, and it needs 3 words on the page. And I'm going to give everybody about 2 minutes to do that. Obviously, again, I would give you more minutes in real life if you were co-producing with me. Does that all make sense? Everybody happy with that? Got about 1 more minute. Okay, lovely. So people are happy to stop there. So what I would do with these, I might ask a couple of people to share their images if they're happy to. But what I would do with these is instead of asking people to share, I would get people to get some blue tack or whatever suitable white tack, stick it on the wall. So then you make a museum or an exhibition of these. And it can be anonymous, or you can put them in a pile and mix them up and then put them up so actually nobody knows who's created anything. And then you go around and you can just have a look first and then discuss your museum or your exhibition that you've just made. Anybody happy to share what they've done? Emma, would you be willing to share? You smiled at me. Well, it looked like you were smiling towards me. Thanks.
Can you see that?
Yes, I think so. Recognizing diversity, harnessing skills, justice, equality, respect. And is that a rainbow? A lovely rainbow.
It is. I spent a bit too much time drawing the rainbow and then ran out of time for the words.
No, thanks. It's perfect. But that would give us a point of reference to where people could then look at that and think, oh, what's similar to mine? What's different to mine? Another thing that you could do is if you had newspaper stories that really were negative stories before, and the reason for your regeneration or the reason for the thing that you're developing is to improve something, you could have a headline of what the old one was. You could make your own headline of what the old one was, so that goes up against it, so you can see a kind of before and an after, so what we're working from and what we're working towards, if that makes sense as well. The other thing is with groups that maybe freestyle is a bit more challenging, you can create a template. So there's one place for an image, one place for a word, one place for a headline, and then they just need to work with, or it could just be an image based exercise as well. But you talk about it as a newspaper, as the head of the newspaper. Perfect. So very quickly, objects can be used in many ways. One being making them into puppets. So if you've got a bunch of arts and crafts materials and you've got some inanimate objects, you could use them if people are happy to you know, build them together. If you've got string and you've got sellotape, you can usually stick stuff together and make something, and you can play out versions of, you know, what would be the ideal customer service experience here, and play it out with puppets rather than playing it out with yourself playing the real part or whatever that might be. So that's one version. Another thing that you can do with objects is, if something were an inanimate, for example, if my best friend were an inanimate object, it would help if I could say inanimate, wouldn't it? If my best friend was an inanimate object, what would she be? What would he be? And so I might say my best friend is like a radiator, because she keeps me warm when I'm cold. I know she's always going to be there, and I can kind of ring her whenever I need her by turning on a switch, for example. And so you can get people to think about things in a new way using the objects, and that can be a selection of objects that you've brought, or it can just be to think of it. So that's kind of most of the exercises that we're going to do. Other mediums that work well: Play-Doh, clay, anything that is tactile and you get the chance to kind of make. I would always, I mean, I think it is research proven, though I don't have the research to hand, that if you do something, you are much more likely to remember doing it, and to much more likely to be embedded and kind of integrated into the thing that you're doing. So it's just about really bringing that to life, and the conversation that comes after that, you can then capture. So I would say that my golden rules for creativity in co-production would be that resources, you choose the resources that you want to have for a session and why you've got them. So you don't have, I'm not saying have endless resources somewhere. I'm just saying make a choice of which ones you want to use. Creativity doesn't necessarily mean unstructured. In fact, having a rule within your creativity allows for people to focus on the rule and not what they're actually being asked. And in that, they then bring out the things that they want to bring out, rather than just go round and round in circles over the same point that they're thinking. They find a way to articulate that point. And then my third golden rule is, if everybody's making and everybody's doing, then it means everybody is thinking, and it gives you time to have reflections. So that's just, I mean, they're rules that are not strong rules, I would say. They're just kind of my thoughts on what can be used and what can be done. In terms of participants actually doing tasks, we've not touched on any of that. So there are things like, for example, if you wanted a group of people to work on a budget, you could give them the things, give them a list of budget amounts, and see what they think by putting it on a large scale on the floor version of what the budget could be. So you're not working on an Excel spreadsheet and you're not asking people to do that, but you can see, they can then also see and understand the parameters of which you're working or your organization is working within as well. So we're nearly at the end, guys, but we've got a few more things. So we're going to do a freeze frame now. I'm going to count down from 5 to 1, and we're going to hold it. And this is our freeze frame for how we feel at the end of the workshop, because we had one at the beginning. So this is what we're feeling at the end. So I'm going to count down and just turn your bodies into that freeze frame. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Perfect. Thanks, everybody. So that is our thoughts. Anybody got any thoughts or any reflections or any questions for me? Not necessarily that I will know all the answers, but I'll probably give one. Yes. Joe, is that?
I love this as a whistle stop tool. Really good. Lots of ideas there. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Marianne?
Could you elaborate on the treasure map thing you were talking about, please?
Yeah. So
well, especially the theatre version. Yeah. Or both. Yeah.
So if you do you have a particular thing that you're working towards with your co-production that you're thinking about?
No, not at the moment. No. So well, just getting back out, getting people back out again and together, I guess. Yeah. Confidence. Having the confidence for people to come back out and meet up with people again. Yeah, that's the current focus.
So I guess if you were making a visual representation of that, and this is just me talking, just responding in the moment, what you might say is that the X that marks the spot is everybody coming together, and the opening of your door ready to leave, like you're peeping around the door, is the kind of the nervousness at the beginning, and then in between, in terms of theatre, what I did before is kind of freeze frames of the stages to get there. So a group freeze frame, or you can make a group machine where one person makes a sound and an action, and they just do it over and over again, and then another person joins, and then another person joins, and another person joins, and another person joins, and then you've got this big machine, and it's how, so you could make the machine to get to the X that marks the spot. If it was a visual one, what I would probably say is, or you could structure it like a story, so that it's kind of like once upon a time, so that you have blank spaces in a story that they then go on in this treasure map, and then you recreate that story, and it's how you get to that point. But like I said, I did half and half, merge that together with something else. So that's why that was probably quite vague, because I thought, oh, I'm sure that'd work. It sounds like a good idea. And I've sort of done it before in a different way. Any other questions or reflections? Emma?
Can I just ask how you would deal with, even with the chocolate thing, there was some maybe sensitive things that came out, like fattening and guilt, and I'm just wondering how, and especially online, how you might deal with perhaps even in an icebreaker, unintended things coming out from your activities, and the kind of, I guess, the ethics around some of that. Yeah, not an easy question, sorry, but
no, it's fine. I think what I would say is it's really important that you understand your organization's safeguarding policy. Make sure everybody only shares what they're willing to share, and that can be any information. It doesn't have to be really specific safeguarding related. So I did say at the beginning that share what you're happy to, and so I think some of it's that, and I think some of it is about sort of saying those are people's real feelings, and that is how they might feel, and it's okay to accept that that's how it might make somebody feel, and some of that might actually feed into making something a better place, or if somebody feels scared somewhere, that would make it's important to address it. But I think obviously it's not about personal things, so sometimes what you could do is, if you were aware that the group might bring things out like that, you could take all those in and tally them up yourself, and just show the top 10 words or the top 5 words, or the and that way would kind of eliminate some of that, probably. Great, thanks. Any final things? And I'll just Sarah.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
I just wondered if you've done this with people who don't have English as their first language, because I've tried a couple of things. We tried kind of what weather would you be today at the start of a meeting, and we found that people didn't really understand that kind of slightly more abstract applying something to yourself. So they just described what the weather was outside the window, whereas the English speaking people did get it. So it's just about how you make that accessible for people who, particularly some of the more sort of metaphorical things where you have to sort of think a bit laterally. Have you tried doing that with people who don't have English as I can see the drawing and things, maybe using that more and words less is the answer.
Yeah, I would say images more, so sort of flashcards as well. So you can say, I feel this, because people quite, when I am in the sun, I feel this. When I'm in the rain, I feel this. And so you can see, and people might feel happy in both. And you can kind of get them to create a sentence about them and the real, to try and make it as literal as it is, as literal as possible, even though it is a figurative question that you're asking, I guess. Again, freeze frames do work really well because they make something, and clay and Play-Doh, because they have the time to put it together and it's tactile, that actually they might not necessarily be able to communicate verbally what they need, but actually if you took a photograph of all of them and put them together, you would be able to see from that what people are suggesting. So that would be my first. I would say just stay away from the English language as much as possible. Yeah, great. So the final thing is just to let people know, I want to share just a few things. One is that Ignite Imaginations has a conference called the Arts and Wellbeing Conference on the 12th of May, and we have a festival on the 13th to the 16th, which is an intergenerational festival called Talking About Our Generation, which is part of our Age Better programme, Talking About Our Generation Festival. And so that's things from Ignite that you can look out for, things from Age Better that you can look out for, and as part of this learning event, we have a dance session tomorrow morning, with Charlie, I think, sorry, I'm looking for the name, Charlie, tomorrow morning, so everybody can have a boogie, which sounds brilliant, and you can turn your cameras off, and you've already done freeze frames today, so I'm sure a little dance would be nice. And then we've got a Gather Town with Co-Create, which is an event that's looking at the toolkit that has been created as part of this project, as part of Age Better nationally, for tools to use for co-producing throughout, and it's looking at co-production in its widest scope. So depending on what sector you're in, you can just tap into different bits, and it's a session that can help you interact with that toolkit and use that toolkit to your advantage. And then we've got an end of week celebration, and that's time to reflect and make your co-production pledges. So what are you going to commit to doing for the next year? Let's say, let's not go beyond that, for the next year, in a fun activity at the end of the week. So because we've been part of the Age Better national learning event, which is really exciting. Thanks very much for joining me. I'm sorry it was very speedy. I hope you've got lots from it. If you have any questions, my email is emma@igniteimaginations.org.uk, and feel free to drop me an email. We've got your email addresses shared with us if you've consented from Age Better, so I'll drop everybody an email with an outline of the plan that we did today as well, so you've got it written down. All right, thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye, thanks.